start in about 60 seconds. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning and Zoning Committee. It's Tuesday, August 5th, 1:01 p.m. I'm the chair of the committee, Andrew Owen. I'm joined by my vice chair, Scott Reed, joined in chambers by Councilwoman Betsy Rui, Councilman Kevin Bratcher, Councilman Jeff Hudson, Councilman Khalil Bet-Shan. Committee member Shamika Parrish-Wright has an excused absence, and it looks like we're joined online by committee member Josie Raymond. This meeting is being held pursuant to KRS 61.826 and Council Rule 5A. Let's see, a couple of quick housekeeping things. Item number 8 is going to be held. I think that's the only change on the agenda. So the first item on the agenda is O-169-25, an ordinance relating to the zoning of property located at 8000 National Turnpike containing approximately 0.34 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 25, zone 0039. Can I get a motion? Properly moved and seconded. Julia, are you going to be speaking to this?
Julia Williams, Office of Planning. This is 25 Zone 0039, National Turnpike Auto Sales and Repair. The site is located at 8000 National Turnpike in District 13. The existing use is commercial, and the proposed use is also commercial. The existing zoning is R4 in the Suburban Workplace Forum District. The proposed zoning is C2 in the Suburban Workplace Forum District. The change in zoning request was from R4 single-family residential to C2 commercial. There was also a waiver and a detailed district development plan with binding elements. The proposed use is auto sales and repair. It's an existing one-story structure to be renovated with access from Tolles Lane. This is the applicant's development plan. So this is the access from Tolles Lane and the existing structure. This is the subject property as it currently exists. And this is the view from National Turnpike. This is the subject property from Tolles Lane. An adjacent property across Tolles Lane, it's a credit union. And then across National Turnpike, there are existing warehouses. Their applicant held their neighborhood meeting on February 26, 2025, 2025. LD&T held their meeting on May 22nd, 2025. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on June 26, 2025, where there was a motion to recommend denial of the change in zoning from R4 to C2, passing by a vote of 4-2. Are there any questions?
So this item is in Councilman Symes' district, District 13, and I think he has asked Vice Chair Reed to speak on this. So, Vice Chair Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and did get an email from his office that reads, Councilman Symes is unable to attend today's Planning and Zoning Committee meeting today, but he would like to share his thoughts on O-169-25. Councilman Symes supports the Planning Commission's findings and asks for his colleagues' support in voting yes to deny the change in zoning for the property located at 8000 National Turnpike. The Planning Commission voted 4 yes, 2 no, and 4 absent to deny the changes in zoning from R4 to C2. and it goes through some of the findings of fact, but I don't think we need to go through that. So that's from Councilman Simon.
Thank you. Let's see here. I have Councilwoman Rui in the queue.
Thank you. Just looking at what's there straight up, it doesn't look like it's that contentious. Why was it denied?
Some of the members thought this was a residential area and therefore should not be rezoned. I think that was more the consensus of what they had said.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else with questions or concerns about this one? I don't have anyone else in the queue. Julia, can you put back up the map? Not the development plan, but that map. So where on that is the industrial?
Across National Turnpike here is a larger warehouse.
Okay.
And this kind of larger lot here.
Okay.
There's also some Easy One located a little bit further down Tolles Lane. And then C1 across the street. And then the property zoned R4, and then there's R4 on two sides of it.
And then can you point out there where the closest actual occupied residential structure is? I mean, I'm just having a hard time. I mean,
Sure.
I see what I'm seeing there is it's entirely surrounded by commercial uses. So I'm not saying that I'm going to, vote to overturn necessarily, but I'm trying to get a better, where, if you can show me on that map.
Yeah, I was hoping that maybe I had a picture of the adjacent property, which is theoretically residential, even though it may not look like that in the aerial that you're seeing.
Right, because certainly the property as currently used is not being used as residential. It's zoned residential.
Yeah, so I mean,
So
I can
let me ask it a little bit different way. It's a different question, but so they're doing a renovation of the property, and during that process, they were trying to get themselves into the right zone when they haven't been previously. Were they grandfathered in some way to be the use that they currently are? I mean, this is an existing business. Am I wrong?
the structure is existing, and the structure, as far as we can tell, has been used as some form of commercial, probably auto sales or repair, for some time. A lot of the lots out in this area, you'll see this across Jefferson County, are zoned residential but have been historically used as commercial, and I think that's in general what happened here.
Okay. I'm gonna support Councilman Syme. He knows the district better than I do, but this seems like an odd one to me. It's just because, yeah, Councilman Batchon, you got
Thank you, Chair.
light that you can shed on this one?
I don't really have a lot of life I can shed on it, but I just recently went through a situation. Would this be considered, Julia, in one of those plan certain situations where it was zoned that way in an overlay and the industrial was developed around it as it has been, and now that they are going through the process, they're being forced to change the zoning? Or did they operate under a CUP prior to this? I'm just trying to understand a little bit more of the dynamics here.
It wouldn't have been plan certain, and it wouldn't have been part of an area-wide because the underlying zoning is still R4. It is possible that back when R4 came into play, that got a blanket R4 over this property, not realizing that it had been used commercially. And you see that all across Jefferson County, in a lot of areas where a residence or a commercial structure gets rezoned, or when zoning started was R4. And I don't know what the back history, as far as it goes back on this property. So I don't know that I have a good answer for that.
Thank you.
Do we know the last time the zoning was changed here? Probably never, or it's been a long time, I would guess.
I would say it was never changed. It was R4 when R4 got blanketed over Jefferson County.
Right, okay. Councilman Bratcher.
Yes, how many people are on the planning commission that can vote?
10.
So is there a quorum before business can be taken, like 5 or 6,
5's a quorum,
half?
yes.
Do you, just conversation here, nothing holding you to it, but what do you, is it normal that the full 10 do not always vote?
I mean, if they're, well, they're not present, they're not, obviously not going to vote. So we had 4 members that weren't able to be at that particular meeting.
So it was denied 4-2, so you don't need 5 to, what if it was hypothetically 2-1? Would that still pass? I mean, would the motion pass 2-1 or 1-0? Is there not a minimum yes vote?
So it would have to be a quorum. So if the vote was 3-2, because 5's a quorum, so if 3-2 say denying the proposal, it would be recommended for denial, or the opposite, like 3-2 for approval, then it would have been recommended for approval.
What if you had, let's say, and I'm throwing out a lot of ideas here, but I'm just trying to get a grip of it. Let's say you had 8 members show up, or say all 10. Of course, you've got the quorum, and then when it's time to vote, 1 member votes yes, and the others vote present. They don't vote. Can you vote present instead of yes or no, or?
I'm going to refer to Travis on that question.
Travis Feaster, Assistant County Attorney. I don't think we've ever had planning commission, I guess they do occasionally vote present or our equivalent of present. A common occurrence is when we have new members in the planning commission, their first meeting, they don't tend to actually take action, they sort of sit and observe and abstain is what the language they typically use. I don't think we've ever had a situation where we've had sufficient abstentions that we would not have quorum. I need to look at that. My gut instinct is to say that if we have enough people who aren't willing effectively to vote, that we'd probably continue the case until we could get a sufficient number of members, but it's possible it's occurred at some point. Right, so a present vote ultimately does count towards the majority, but I don't know if there's a minimum threshold there. You know, if it's 1 and then 9 presents, I'm not sure if that would just mean the case passes or not, so I need to look at that. If I could double back very slightly, not to interrupt your line of questioning, Councilman, but there's some information as well on the history of this property and the minutes. I could relay that if that would be helpful.
There's what?
There were some questions about the history of the property.
Oh, I'm just trying to learn the mechanics of the planning commission. Thank you, Chairman.
If it's just a short, remind us what the.
It is. So it's a short blurb, and it's located in the applicant's rebuttal, which is on page 12 of the minutes. But basically, the property had previously been operated out of compliance with the zoning. This applicant acquired the property, and I think the quote is that they're committed to maintaining the site in a way that supports compliance. So they've been moving towards getting the proper permits and that sort of thing, and one of those was coming into zoning compliance. So I know the previous owner, was operating without proper zoning. I can't tell you how many years or owners that goes back, but that was the intention of this applicant.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was expecting. I'm actually, I am going to register a no vote actually on this one, because I think we're penalizing an owner for trying to do the right thing and get within compliance on the zoning. So I think I am going to register a no vote on this. I just think that based on what we've talked about and based on what I've seen in the record, I want to register a no vote, even though the Planning Commission voted 4-2. I don't think I have anybody else in.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? I'm sorry, I can't access the queue.
Floor is yours, Councilwoman Raymond.
Thank you. So it's a currently operating business seeking to come into compliance. If we do not approve the zoning change bringing them into compliance, I wanted to ask who can speak to then what happens to that business?
So it's not a currently operating business. It was a business operating as a commercial facility that went out of business. This is a new ownership that bought the property and wants to continue along a similar line as to what was previously occurring at the property. And so the new ownership would be bringing the property into compliance when it wasn't previously. Julia, is that fair?
That's right. And as far as your
But
question,
uphold-
go ahead.
I was just going to say, upholding this denial prevents them from operating the business.
That's correct, because the zoning is not correct for the use that they're trying to have. Are you good, Councilwoman Raymond?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Councilman Hudson.
I think you just answered my question. Do I understand this correctly, that a citation was given to the property owner, get into compliance, the property owner is trying to get into compliance, and now we're saying no?
Julia, I'll let you take a first stab at it. I think this property changed hands.
The property changed hands. I didn't see anything in the record where there had been a enforcement on the property.
So I think, Councilman Hudson, I think
Okay.
it had been operated as a commercial business, and for whatever reason, that commercial business ceased to exist.
Yeah.
A new owner bought the property with the anticipation that they were going to continue operating a similar business, realized it was not in compliance.
But at the most basic, I'm sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you. At the most basic level, we have a property owner that's trying to get into compliance, and we are being the obstacle.
Yes, and I will just say, as somebody who does real estate in my other job, I would also just say, and this is a counterpoint to what I just said,
It's complicated.
why they purchased the property without getting to the bottom of what the zoning was is a mistake on their part. So it's not all on us. Yeah, and so I just, now that I'm thinking my way through it, that's potentially not all on us. Councilwoman Rui.
Well, I am very much of two minds here. I'm inclined to vote no, to not uphold it, because I've driven down National Turnpike many times, and there's many residences that are now commercial. And I really don't understand why they've done what they've done. Everything around there, except what's behind them on Tolls Lane, is already commercial. So I am just got my eyebrows all squinched up going, all the times that they've endorsed something that I think is a mistake, and here this is something that makes complete sense to me, and they're telling me no. So I'm of two minds here. I haven't made up my mind what I'm going to say yet, vote yet, but I'm confused.
Councilman Hudson.
Yeah, I think there's enough confusion to go around on this one. Can we table this? I move to table. Councilwoman Rui, can you second that?
Do we have a second? We have a motion to table and a second. Can I check with Travis on timing here?
So the 90-day date on this one is September 23rd. I don't have the council calendar in front of me, but that's at least 2 more meetings, so we've got time.
Okay, thank you.
So let's see, we have a motion before us. Do we have any more discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Councilwoman I think that was a no, but I don't.
It was an aye. Aye.
Oh, an aye. Okay, so the ayes have it. This piece of legislation has been tabled to the next meeting. Okay, The next piece of legislation in front of us is O-170-25, an ordinance relating to the zoning of properties located at 7304 Vaughn Mill Road and 7205 Briscoe Lane, containing approximately 5.87 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 24, zone 0131. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Julia.
This is 24 Zone 131, Vaughn Mill Estates. This is located at Vaughn Mill Road and Briscoe Lane in Council District 23. The existing use is single-family residential with the proposed use of also single-family residential. The existing zoning is R4 in the Neighborhood Form District. The proposed zoning is Planned Residential District in the Neighborhood Form District. The change in zoning is from R4 Single Family Residential to PRD Planned Residential Development with a detailed district development plan, major preliminary subdivision plan with binding elements. The property is 5.6 acres. The proposals for 36 buildable lots and 1 open space lot. Primary access would be from Vaughn Mill Road, and then there's 2 lots that'll be accessed from Briscoe Lane. You can see these lots, the Briscoe Lane access lots are here at the bottom, and then with the rest of the lots being accessed from Vaughn Mill Road. This is the subject property and the access point from Vaughn Mill Road. The proposed lots 20 and 21 fronting on Briscoe Lane. And then adjacent property across Vaughn Mill Road, single-family residential. Or I'm sorry, those were duplexes. The applicant held their neighborhood meeting on September 11, 2024. The Land Development and Transportation Committee held their meeting on May 22nd, 2025. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on June 26, 2025, where there was a motion to recommend approval of the change in zoning from R4 to PRD, passing by a vote of 5-1. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Julia. I actually don't have in my notes what district this is. You? Okay, this is in Councilman Hudson's district. Floor is yours to speak to it.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is single-family homes being built, nestled up to single-family homes adjacent to a park with adequate infrastructure to support it. There was no opposition at the Planning Commission, and I am going to be voting yes and would encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Thank you. I don't have anybody else in the queue. Anybody else have questions or concerns about this before we open up the floor for roll call vote? Okay, Cheryl, can you open up the roll call vote, please?
Voting's open. Councilmember Raymond?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Orr, you have 7 yes votes.
Okay, with unanimous vote, this will pass on to old business on the next council agenda. Item number 3, O-171-25, an ordinance relating to the zoning of properties located at 4922 Preston Highway and 1129 and 1131 Rose Drive, containing approximately .252 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 25, zone 0036. Can I get a second? Second. Properly moved and seconded. Julia.
This is 25 Zone 0036, DeLeon Auto Sales. This is located in Council District 21 at 4922 Preston Highway. I got that wrong. The existing use is commercial and the proposed use is commercial. The existing zoning is C1 in the suburban marketplace corridor with a proposed zoning of C2 in the suburban marketplace corridor. The request is a change in zoning from C1 commercial to C2 commercial. There was also a waiver and a detailed district development plan with binding elements. The site is an existing service station. The proposed use is auto sales. There's access from both Preston Highway and Rose Drive with no new construction being proposed at this time. This is the applicant's development plan where you can see the access from Preston Highway as well as Rose Drive. This is the subject property as it currently exists. And this is the property from Rose Drive. These are the adjacent properties, north along Preston Highway and then south along Preston Highway. And then this is across the street on Rose Drive from the subject property. The applicant held their neighborhood meeting on March 12th, 2025. The Land Development and Transportation held their meeting on May 22nd, 2025. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on June 26, 2025, where there was a motion to recommend approval of the change in zoning from C1 to C2, passing by a vote of 6-0. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Julia. This is in Councilwoman Rui's district. I'm sure she would like to speak to it.
Thank you very much. I am familiar with this area, and much as I really don't want another car lot in there, they're already there, so I have no objections to the rezoning.
Thank you. Don't have anybody else in the queue. Anybody else have questions or concerns about this ordinance? Cheryl, can we open up the roll call vote, please?
Vote is open. Councilmember Raymond?
Yes.
Thank you. Chair Owen, you have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. With 7 yes votes, that's unanimous, and it will go on old business at the next council meeting agenda of the next council meeting. Item number 4, O-172-25, an ordinance relating to the zoning of property located at 113 North Wenzel Street, containing approximately .04 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 25, zone 0040. Can I get a motion?
Motion. Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Julia.
This is 25 Zone 0040 on Wenzel Street. The property is located in Council District 4 at 113 North Wenzel Street. The existing use is single-family residential with a proposed use of commercial. The existing zoning is R6, proposed zoning C2, both in the traditional neighborhood form district. The change in zoning is from R6 multifamily residential to C2 commercial. There was also a detailed district development plan with binding elements. There's no proposed new construction. The existing building is to remain. The applicant will be utilizing on-street parking for the subject site. This is the applicant's development plan, where you can see the subject, or the building is proposed to remain. This is the subject property as it looks from Wenzel. Adjacent properties across North Wenzel, there's a site, another site being rezoned, that was being rezoned in May. The applicant held their neighborhood meeting on March 27, 2025. The Land Development and Transportation Committee held their meeting on May 22nd, 2025, with the Planning Commission holding their public hearing on June 26, 2025. With a motion to recommend approval for the change in zoning, passing by, from R6 to C2, passing by a vote of 6-0. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Julia. This is in Councilman Herndon's district, and he reached out to my office to say that he is in support and would appreciate our support for this ordinance. Let's see, do I have anybody else in the queue? Doesn't look like I have anybody else in the queue. Without further questions or concerns, Cheryl, can you open up a roll call vote, please?
Voting's open. Councilmember Raymond?
Yes.
Thank you. Voting's closing. Chair, you have 7 yes votes.
Thank you. This will be sent to to old business for the next council meeting with the unanimous 7 votes. Item number 5, O-109-25, an ordinance relating to the amendment to binding elements for property located at 11905 Dixie Highway, containing approximately 2.19 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 25, AMEND 0001. Can I get a motion? Properly moved and seconded. Julia.
So this one has already been presented and has been tabled a couple times, so, or held a couple times.
And Mr. Chair, I can provide an update if you'd like.
Okay. Travis, can you bring us up to speed, please?
Happy to. So this one has been held a couple times to work on some binding elements. As a refresher, this was a development plan amendment, a case that had previously been rezoned to CM, but had all the commercial, all the industrial uses struck except for many warehouses. The applicant would like to explore some other industrial uses. We've been sort of paring down what is and is not acceptable. We've more or less got the uses figured out, but now we're dealing with some, just some buffering plantings and such to kind of, again, buffer some of those more intense uses and to make the area look as nice as possible. So we are so close that I think the councilwoman feels comfortable moving this, and we can get that language finalized for council if the committee's all right with that. But that's the latest, and we are quite close. We're just sort of dealing with the specifics of some buffering now.
This, just as a reminder, this is Councilwoman Bass' district, right? District 14. Anybody else have questions or concerns, or I'm willing to move it on through to full council based on Travis's recommendation from Councilwoman Bass if everyone else says. Okay, I don't have anybody else in the queue, so without further questions or concerns, Cheryl, can you open up?
Vote is
the poll?
open.
Thank you.
Councilmember Raymond?
Yes.
Thank you. Voting is closing. Chair, you have 7 yes votes.
Doing everything unanimously today. That's great. Will be forwarded to old business. Item number 6, O-139-25, an ordinance amending sections 1.2, 2.2, 4.2, and 4.3 of the Louisville Metro Land Development Code regarding homeless and crisis shelters, case number 24-LDC-0001, as amended. Can I get a motion? Motion. Probably moved and seconded. This came back over, no wait. Yeah, this came back over from the last council meeting. Councilman Batchon, would you like to?
So we brought this back, thank you, Chair. We brought this back to kind of dive in a little deeper with Councilman Reed. I'm going to kind of turn it over to him a little bit. But I've noticed a few changes since it's come back. Travis, can you elaborate? Maybe I'm
So after the last committee meeting, there was some discussion with Councilwoman Rui and Parrish Wright about some changes which were drafted and put on the system for consideration by council, but then it ended up getting sent back here. So they haven't been passed yet. I can talk about those if you'd like.
Please.
Briefly. So they are on page, oh gosh, I have a printed document here, but not the one that I needed. But they are on the specifics of 2 of the uses. So near the end, the day shelters in subsection B, so it's section 4.3.32 day shelters. Subsection B is the distancing requirement, and the current version requires no more than only one within 1,000 feet, but allows for more if they serve different populations. And the amendment would be to put a cap on that. So you could have another unit with a different population, but no more than 2 within 1,000 feet. And that same sort of language is used in the accessory overnight structures, that next section. There's also a small amendment to the example to make very clear what we mean by that. And we added a clarification that the accessory overnight limitation is in residential zoning districts. That's just sort of mirror that. If there are multiple accessory overnight shelters within a commercial zone, the spacing is not as much of a concern.
My question, sorry, Mr. Chair, may I follow
So
up?
Travis, we did vote to amend the legislation to that form that you just mentioned in the last committee meeting, didn't we?
We did not. No, we discussed those changes. We didn't have an amendment. And again, that draft amendment was sent to council, but it didn't get passed because this got kicked back.
Okay, so we had sent it on to council in order to pass that draft amendment, but, okay, that's great. Okay, Councilman Batchon.
Thank you, sorry. Travis, when you say permitted zoning in any zoning district subject to the following standards, do we need to specify R6 and above? Because when I made the original amendments, we made sure that we had R5 and R4 and R5A and B.
So
mimic
accessory
transition
overnights
housing.
are a little bit different than the other uses here. They are specifically accessories to religious institutions, and many of those do occur in R4 areas. So they are a unique situation where churches could open up these, temporary overnight shelters in certain circumstances. And so I think that's why the zoning restrictions aren't also in place on that.
Okay, with that being said, so then it is still wise to keep 4.2.65 marked out with that being in there?
And I apologize, I'm not sure if we're looking at the same
Page
draft.
8.
Page 8. Right.
When you say marked
So
out.
the private
you mean
institutional use
eliminated?
is sort of a separate,
Councilman Batchon, when you say marked out, you mean eliminated,
Yes,
removed?
correct,
Yeah.
yes.
right. So that's a separate issue than what we were just discussing. Councilwoman Rui's amendment was what was in front of council, and it's sort of limited in scope. The private institutional use is a broader change we haven't really talked about a whole lot yet. We can, and it may be appropriate for us to have talked about that a little bit as well. But previously, I was referring to, again, the sort of day shelter and accessory overnight shelter amendments that Councilwoman Rui and Parish Wright had discussed at committee last time.
Okay. My main question for me is, if we move the amendments as they are today, the one thing that concerns me again is similar to what I just mentioned, but in 4.2.56, a homeless shelter may be allowed in any zoning district upon granting the conditional use permit. I think that contradicts us removing the definition where scratching R5, A and B, and R4.
Sorry, are we still talking about 4.2.65? That is struck?
We've moved on to 4.2.56.
0.56. That must be higher in the draft, I apologize. Right. So that is existing language, so that's not any of the new uses that are being proposed. Homeless shelters are currently permitted in any zoning district with a conditional use permit.
What about deed restrictions and HOAs and things of that nature?
So similar to any of these other uses, our code doesn't explicitly overrule any of those things. We don't have any authority over them because the planning commission is not a party. They don't have the ability to interpret or enforce. They're not a court. But if there were a neighborhood that says there shall not be any homeless shelters within this neighborhood, and that's in their deed of restrictions, then they could separately enforce that deed of restriction to prevent that use from moving forward.
Can we just add a portion in that spot that says a homeless shelter may be allowed in R6 and up?
So I'm not going to say that we can't. That would be a pretty significant change and probably render a number of currently existing homeless shelters non-conforming, which has some implications that we may want to talk about before sort of doing it at this moment.
I'm going to defer to.
Hold off for a
Reed.
minute. Let's let
Yeah.
Councilman Reed
Yeah.
jump in here. And then I'm still a little confused about what the ultimate goal is here. So Councilman Reed, can you jump in?
Yeah, so, thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the prior meeting 2 weeks ago, I raised a concern about HOAs and also taking one of their buildings in an HOA and turning it into a homeless shelter without a deed, without a CUP, clubhouse, that's the term I'm looking for. So when we went back and started really digging into this, we saw that there might be some other unintended consequences by eliminating 4.2.65. Specifically, religious institutions that are in that zoning classification up to R5. And as it states now, those religious institutions would not need a CUP, and I believe that they do. So I'm proposing that that language remain in the ordinance. This is irrespective of what Councilwoman Rui is, I think, very justifiably trying to accomplish as well. So how do we handle this? I mean, would that be two different amendments, or has this already been struck? 4.2.65, please help.
So I think procedurally, I think the easiest thing is to deal with Councilwoman Ruiz first, because it's already sort of drafted on that level. And then to additionally discuss and vote on the separate amendment regarding institutional uses. I will note that the institutional use changes will also hit some of the definitions in the individual districts. All the notations, for example, on page 3, where RR rural residential starts, and it may be page 2 or 4, depending on which draft you're looking at. But previously, there was a clause that said publicly owned or operated libraries, museums, historical buildings, et cetera, because those were allowed to proceed, but privately owned would qualify as institutional use and needed a CUP. So under the new draft, a library, privately owned, could go anywhere. A museum, privately owned, could go anywhere. Undoing the institutional use CUP deletion would mean that we need to re-clarify that only the publicly owned options exist in some of those lower districts. No, that's a lot. But the short version is, if we're going to add in that, if we're going to add that language back in about institutional uses, we need to recategorize some of the definitions up top, because those were shifted to adjust for the CUP deletion.
Okay, that's reasonable.
So I'm having a little hard time following, honestly. I mean, I think I think the intent originally was to try to make these sorts of temporary shelters easier. We were trying to make it easier for people to do this, to accommodate for people who didn't have a place to go. And I'm not sure that we're headed in that direction now. But I will, I mean, I was honest before, I still am. I'm having a little trouble following the bouncing ball, because when you look at these documents, there's a lot of things struck out.
And on that note, and I'm sorry to add another complicating layer, I, sort of on my own initiative, redrafted Councilwoman Rui's proposed amendment as an amendment by substitution to try and resolve some of these. There's multiple areas in the current draft, because we're on our third tier of amendments, where there's language that was added in and then later struck, and so we've got language that's both underlined and crossed through.
Right.
It's hard to read.
It is.
And we're at the point where if we added additional layers of amendments, we start to go to, like, I think red is our next, we start moving to colors. It gets incredibly difficult to read very quickly. So I drafted Councilwoman Rui's amendment in the form of amendment by substitution, so we can get back down to single underline, single strike through, and then sort of build on that to simplify things. That's not on the system yet, because again, I sort of took a little initiative there. But if the committee would prefer to pass it in the form of an amendment by substitution, then we can get a simplified document to kind of work forward on. I apologize that it's not ready today.
So I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of us were in agreement on the amendment that was proposed by Councilwoman Rui. So, I mean, I think what you're saying, Travis, is if we went ahead and passed Councilwoman Rui's amendment as an amendment by substitution, then we would have a new document to start working from, and then we could kind of figure out what the path forward was after that.
Yes, I think it'll be easier for people who aren't, especially who aren't intimately familiar with what all is going on here, to read and understand, for the public to understand, and then also, just from a drafting perspective, to be able to layer in additional changes.
Let's see what I got here. Councilwoman Rui, are you in the queue?
At this point, I'd just like to say I would like to go with the amendment by substitution. Actually, I had something else I want to comment on, but let's get this done first.
Okay. Councilman Batchon, are you,
I am in the queue, but I'm going to defer to Councilman Reed first, because he had something to say
Okay,
to
Councilman
Travis's thing, and then I'll come back
Thank
to
you.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So for my own edification, 4.2.65 as it is now has been struck, correct?
Correct, and it would still appear as such in the initial amendment by substitution. That could be further amended, but it is currently struck.
Okay. So then when we get back to the clean document that would include Councilwoman Rui's amendments, that would still be struck, and then for that to be included, we'd have to come back for another amendment. Okay. Thank you.
So you have made the motion for that amendment, you've put the amendment in front of us, Councilwoman Rui, Councilman Batchon, are you?
Yeah, that was a segue, I think, that I needed to get a clarification on.
Okay, Councilman Batchon.
Travis, thank you, Chair. If we bring 4.2.65 back in after let's say we pass this amendment, we bring it back in, and then that allows by right for homeless shelters to really just go anywhere.
So 4.2.65 doesn't really affect homeless shelters because they require either a conditional use permit or with standards. So they have a separate clarification of where homeless shelters are permitted. 4.2.65 deals with institutional uses, which cover things like churches, museums, schools, et cetera. And so it's really a separate issue. There is some overlap, especially when we get to the accessory overnight structures that are only permitted as accessory to a religious structure. So there's some connection there, but homeless shelters aren't really affected by 4.2.56 being included or not.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody's work. We'll figure it out after we look at the clean version.
Okay, so the amendment is in front of us. Can I get a second on the amendment?
Second.
Okay, do we have any additional comments or questions about the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. 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 All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. So we have an approved amendment in front of us.
Right, so we have an approved amendment, and I think I've heard sort of two big picture concepts. The one is reinserting the institutional uses conditional use permit, which, as I said, I'll have some other implications, but we can get that drafted. I think the second outstanding question is Councilman Batchon's piece about the homeless shelter CUP in 4.2.56, and whether or not that should be further limited. It's worth noting that the homeless shelters with special standards, right? So it doesn't necessarily go through the process. If you meet the standards, you can operate. That is limited to R6 and above. So in order to operate in a single-family zoning district, you must seek a conditional use permit for a homeless shelter. And so I think that's why a large part of the reason that currently exists is because you can't operate with standards below an R6. We can discuss whether those standards are sufficient to buffer in a single-family district and those sorts of things, and whether it should be limited altogether. But if you're going to limit the CUP situation to R6 as well, there may not be a real reason to have both a CUP and a with standards route.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Batchon.
If we were to remove the with standards from it, then we can just stick with R6 and above then, correct? And if so, what would it take to remove the standards?
So I would need to do a comparison here against the two versions, because there may be some, for example, a size limitation maybe in by right. Maybe it's so many beds, and then with the CUP you can do more. I just don't know that off the top of my head, but there may be other differentiations just than where they are permitted.
So based on what I'm hearing, I feel like, I think there's a couple things that we're dealing with here. We're dealing with white flag days, which are both heat but also cold. I think in some senses we're in August, and we do have some time, a little bit of time to get this right before it gets cold. We run the risk over the next 30, 45 days, I guess, of having heat exposure. But I think I would rather get this right than rush it. And it seems like where we are right now is we need to still do a little bit more digesting of where we are. So I would suggest that we table it again until the next committee meeting so we can digest it more. I just don't see other than the potential of having a really hot spell where we had difficulties with, I don't see the sense in rushing something that people aren't comfortable with. Councilman Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I don't disagree with that. I guess my question is, when do you think we can see something?
Sure. I mean, we can attempt to deal with this at council if you would like. Otherwise, I think we can, certainly on the specific institutional use piece, we can get a draft that undoes those changes and unwinds them very easily by next committee. I think the altering where homeless shelters are able to go and in what circumstances is a little bit more complicated. I'm not saying it can't be done in 2 weeks, but I think that one might be difficult to pull off in time for council on Thursday.
I don't know that we necessarily have to have it by next Thursday, you just, I kind of deferring to Councilman Owen, I'd rather get it right, because as it is now, it's a little confusing.
And I do want to remind, though, that where this came from in the beginning was to make this an easier process for institutions, churches, other people who have this as part of their mission to accomplish this mission. And so I would like to make sure that we do actually make it a simpler process rather than make it more difficult.
I agree with that.
Okay, so do we have a motion to table?
Motion to table.
All right. All those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. This will be tabled until our next committee meeting. Next item in front of us is item 7, O-168-25, an ordinance relating to the closure of an unimproved alley between Wheeler Avenue and Cayuga Street containing approximately .051 acres and being in Louisville Metro, case number 24, street closure 0030. Can I get a motion? Properly moved and seconded. Julia, are you prepared to speak to this?
Yes, so this is 24 street closure 0030, Wheeler Avenue and Cayuga Street alley closure. This is located in Council District 15 with Wheeler Avenue and Cayuga Street. It's an unnamed alley closure. The request is a closure of public right-of-way. There's approximately 150 linear feet of unimproved alleyway between Wheeler Avenue and Cayuga Street. The applicant has indicated they will maintain public facilities and all the agency comments have been addressed. This is the area of the closure. And then here's an aerial showing the closure. You can see how it's unimproved along this area. So this is the applicant's plat. This is what the alley currently looks like and what the adjacent properties are, additional adjacent properties. The Land Development Transportation Committee held their meeting on April 17th, 2025. The Planning Commission held their public hearing on June 5th, 2025, where there was a motion to recommend approval of the closure passing by a vote of 8-0. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Julia. I actually have not heard from Councilwoman Chapel on this. I think based on what I've seen and based on the unanimous vote of the Planning Commission, that we should go ahead and pass this out of committee, and if she has any particular, I assume if she had particular concern about it, she would have reached out to me, and she didn't. So that would be my suggestion here. I don't have anybody in the queue. Anybody have any questions or concerns here before we open up to a roll call vote? Cheryl, can you open up the vote, please?
Voting's open. Councilmember Raymond?
Yes.
Thank you. Voting's closing. Chair, you have 7 yes votes.
Thank you, Cheryl. This will be moved to the old business agenda on the next council meeting, for the next council meeting. Item 8, like I said before, that's being held at the request of Councilwoman Purvis. The Chickasaw neighborhood is in her district, so we'll hold that one until the next meeting. And that's the last,
Can you move item 7 to consent? It's a closure, we can have.
yes, yes, thank you. Let's move item 7 to the consent calendar. And I'll check directly with Councilwoman Chapel to make sure that she's good with that. Okay, anybody have any other issues, items that need to be dealt with before we adjourn? With no further items on the agenda, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
156.